Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to everyone once again, and kindly overlook the technical issue that happened some moment ago. I actually didn't notice that I've not added myself to the studio. Anyhow, likewise, it's been a while we've not come online for this class, and it's all because of my little engagements. I mean, I got involved in some activities that in includes a journey. So because of that, I couldn't hold the usual session. But now, Alhamdulillah, we are back on course, and I hope, inshallah, just like previously, we will be consistent in the program, in the session, every Monday and Thursday, except if there is any official impediment. Beside that, inshallah, we try to keep consistency. Today, we'll continue where we stopped, and we are actually on the section. We are still on Kitabul Iman, and we are on the section of explaining different aspects of what is taught in Kitabul Iman. We've seen different indications that Hadrat Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi presented. Uh, Qawlun, fi'lun, yazidu wa yankus, then indicating that Iman is something that is pronounced and it's also an action. Likewise, it can increase, it can decrease. Likewise, Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi presented different verses of the Holy Quran in order to certify the idea he is presenting on the aspect of faith. So different verses were quoted, and we've read those verses previously. ليزدادوا إيمانا مع إيمانهم زدناهم هدى ويزيد الله الذين اهتدوا هدى والذين اهتدوا زادهم هدى وآتاهم تقواهم ويزداد الذين آمنوا إيمانا, and the likes, different verses of the Holy Quran that were presented. And what were the purpose of presenting those verses? That is the idea that Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi had actually presented this section because as a refutation to the sects that were existing those days, having a difference of opinion, such as the prominent ones those days, the Karamiya and the Murja'iyya, who had difference of opinion in the idea of faith, with some having the idea that faith is enough when it is something limited to the heart. Likewise, others have the opinion that it must be accompanied by action, and the some are having the opinion that until one reaches the peak of faith, the person will not be regarded as a believer. Likewise, some have the opinion that it can just be taken as from a nominal state. All this was explained that there, each and every one of them were having their own idea from different perspective, which they were looking at those contents and the uh, aspects of iman, that is faith. So Imam Bukhari had presented this in order to indicate the validity of each section of those ideas without even giving an approval to any of the section that what you have given on your own idea is the only one that is right. On the contrary, Imam Bukhari had refuted the idea that if faith is not based on this particular perspective, then it is not considered as faith. And if it is not based on that particular perspective, it will not be considered as faith. All these are things we've discussed in previous sessions. So we'll not get to these different verses of the Holy Quran that were Imam Bukhari presented in relation to the ahadith which he will be presenting. So one thing I would like to remind us is when I mentioned during the introduction section that Sahih Bukhari is not just a nominal book of hadith. On the contrary, it is also a book of dialectics, a book of ilm kalam and fiqh, that is Islamic jurisprudence. Therefore, when Imam Bukhari presents any section, either is presenting a chapter or is presenting an hadith, he has a particular mindset towards the title. If there is a title there, and if there is no title there, there is a mindset. If there is a verse of the Holy Quran he presented at a particular section, there is a focus for that particular verse of the Holy Quran. When he brings a particular version through a chain of narration and he repeats the same hadith with another chain of narration, there is wisdom behind it. When the matter is considered, the content of the hadith is considered, and he ends it as a particular section, there is a particular idea in it. And when he gives the hadith in full, there is also a different idea in it. Different indication or different connotations can be derived from each and every action of Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi in each and every chapter and each and every hadith he presents. And one of the other popular thing Imam Bukhari always do whenever he needs to refute some ideology is that he will present the verses of the Holy Quran in the beginning, indicating that whatever I'm going to present of hadith or whatever you bear in mind of any statement of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam must go in accordance with these verses of the Holy Quran. If they do not go in accordance with the verses of the Holy Quran I am presenting, then that idea you are having or that hadith that you are presenting is already refuted and cannot be accepted. Therefore, it is very much likely that Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi himself will present a particular hadith, but he is not presenting it on the basis that he accepts the matan, the content of that hadith to be correct. On the contrary, he had presented it because it is having a strong chain, which is the focus of which is one of the focus of the book itself, that it has to be Jami' Musnad Sahih. So all the chains will be strong, but that does not mean the contents in it is also as strong as the chain. Therefore, when Imam Bukhari presents a particular hadith with a strong chain and the content does not go in line with a verse of the Holy Quran that Imam Bukhari has presented earlier on, Imam Bukhari is indicating to us by that despite this hadith being of a very strong chain, I myself do not accept it. On the contrary, I am refuting it with the verse of the Holy Quran I had presented earlier. Then it is also so much likely that after that hadith that contradicts the verse of the Holy Quran is presented, then another hadith will be brought afterwards in order to also refute the current one that we are talking about that might have contradicted the verse of the Holy Quran. Now, what will now be left with us to do with that particular hadith will be of two things. Number one, either we try as much as possible to unify that content, or we understand the scenario for which that statement was made by the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in order to go in line with the verse of the Holy Quran and other ahadith presented by Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi. If we are not able to unify them by any aspects from all the indications Imam Bukhari may be giving to us, then we will understand that Imam Bukhari was actually refuting that particular perspective, the perspective presented in the hadith, with the verse of the Holy Quran, and another hadith. Now, I will now get to the course itself. So we've taken different verses of the Holy Quran. The next verse of the Holy Quran that we are supposed to take last time, and now we are starting from them, that is فَخْشَوْهُمْ فَزَادَهُمْ imana. That is, so fear them, as such it increased them in faith. Hadrat Maulana Zain-ul Abideen Waliyyullah Shah Sahib wrote that इस आयत से इमाम बुखारी रहमतुल्लाह अलैहि ने ये साबित किया है कि दलाइल व बराहीन और निशानात को देखकर ईमान जरूर बढ़ता है. That is, Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi is trying, from this particular verse, is establishing the fact that when one sees evidence, clear evidence and sign from Allah the Almighty, then automatically it is expected that the faith of that individual will increase. So those who have the idea that faith is just static, it doesn't increase, will understand that their point is already refuted by this verse of the Holy Quran. Now, it continued. Ayat ke mane dalil or burhan or nishan ke hai. The meaning of ayah is dalil, that is evidence. Burhan, uh, dalil and burhan. Dalil is a type of evidence that is presented in order to support a particular proposition, and burhan can be considered as a manifest, something that is manifest to any individual, for which when you see it, you understand the reality of a perspective. For example, when you see the lights, then you know there is sun. When you see the light from the sky, you know there is sun. So that is also a type of evidence. But the difference between burhan and dalil is such that dalil is always presented as a supporting evidence to something. So then we have nishan, that is sign. So baz waqt खौफ की हालत भी ईमान को बढ़ा देता है, बढ़ा देती है. At times, even the state of fear increases one in faith. और इंसान के अंदर एक ऐसी हालत खशियत पैदा कर देती है कि वो अल्लाह ताला के हुजूर झुक जाता है. And as such, that fear creates a point of a different level of panic, or a different level of mindset that makes the heart fall at the threshold of Allah the Almighty. जैसा कि इस आयत के आगे अल्लाह ताला फरमाता है, just like it is mentioned in front, I mean, subsequent in this particular verse, وَقَالُوا حَسْبُنَا اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. That is, they said that Allah, sufficient for us is Allah, and He is the best of those who stand as a surety for mankind. So the verse of the whole Quran itself is الَّذِينَ قَالَ لَهُمُ النَّاسُ إِنَّ النَّاسَ قَدْ جَمَعُوا لَكُمْ فَاخْشَوْهُمْ. That is, those believers that people were telling them that the host, people have gathered in order to destroy you, so fear them. فَقَالُوا حَسْبُنَا اللَّهُ وَقَالُوا حَسْبُنَا اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. And their response is, despite all this army, the host that are gathered in order to destroy them, they do not fall for the fear, for the awe of those people. On the contrary, they showed their faith. Their faith was increased by what they saw, having firm faith that Allah the Almighty will be sufficient for them. So they responded. Those companions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad SAW responded as a legacy for us that sufficient for us is Allah, and He is the best of protector. He is the best one who stands in surety for mankind. So it continues, وَمَا زَادَهُمْ إِلَّا إِيمَانًا وَتَسْلِيمًا, and it only increased them in faith and submission. So Hadrat Zain-ul Abideen states, इस आयत से इमाम बुखारी ने ये समझाया है कि न सिर्फ ईमान की कल्बी कैफियत में ही बल्कि अमली फरमाबरदारी में भी तरक्की होती है, जो इस्लाम का असल मफहूम है. That is, it is not only the faith that increases, even the action of a man also increases in line with the way the faith is increasing. Therefore, that itself is what is regarded as Islam. Meaning, when your faith increases, the practical it practically shows up in your way of life, in your actions. When your faith increases, then your actions also bear testimony to it. For example, one whose faith increases and has a fear of Allah, if he was indulged, if he used to indulge in some wrong action before, out of the fear of Allah, he keeps away from those wrong actions, no matter how little they may be. So that is Islam. Therefore, these two are connected together. The way your iman is increasing, that is where how your Islam will also be increasing. That is, your obedience to Allah the Almighty will also be increasing to become evident in your obedience. You can remember when we were dealing with the aspect of difference between iman and Islam. So Hadrat Zain-ul Abideen then presented the full ayat saying, وَلَمَّا رَأَى الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الْأَحْزَابَ قالوا هذا ما وعدنا الله ورسوله وصدق الله ورسوله وما زادهم إلا إيمانا وتسليما. That is, when the believers saw the host, the enemies who were ready to attack and destroy them, they responded, هذا ما وعدنا الله ورسوله. This exactly is what Allah the Almighty and His prophets had promised us. وَصَدَقَ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. Allah and His Prophet have spoken the truth. وَمَا زَادَهُمْ إِلَّا إِيمَانًا وَتَسْلِيمًا. And that particular sin of the opponent they are seeing before them then increased them in faith and submission to Allah. Garas, इन आयत को पेश करके इमाम बुखारी रहमतुल्लाह अलैहि ने हर पहलू से ईमान के घटने बढ़ने को वाज़ी किया है. Therefore, as Imam Bukhari presented all those verses we've quoted, the previous ones are the ones we quoted today, Imam Bukhari had given us a clear elucidation on faith, how it increases or it decreases at different points in time. चूंकि उन आयत में ईमान के बढ़ने का जिक्र है, because in those verses are talked about the increase of faith. इसलिए घटने का मफहूम उनसे ज़िम्नन साबित होता है. As such, the reduction in faith is also understood by those verses, meaning whatever has the ability to increase, at the other side of it, you expect that it also has an ability to decrease. Meaning, if by seeing the signs of Allah the Almighty, by getting closer to Allah the Almighty, your faith is increasing, then not seeing the signs of Allah or moving away from Allah the Almighty, the faith of such an individual will also be decreasing automatically. Now, another statement that was quoted from a hadith is al-hubbu fillahi wal-bugdu fillahi min al-iman. That is, loving for the sake of Allah and having rancor for the sake of Allah is also part of faith. You will understand from this particular perspective when we used to say that at times Imam Bukhari will consider a particular hadith, a particular matan, the content of a particular hadith to be valid, but it's not going to present that hadith in Sahih Bukhari because of the issue in the chain of narration. Now, when he needs that hadith for a purpose, he will not use it as a chapter, as the title of the chapter, which he is going to talk about, then present other hadith in order to support the hadith which he used in order to title the chapter. ये अल्फाज एक हदीस के हैं. These statements are from a hadith जिसको अबू दाऊद ने हजरत अबू उमामा और हजरत अबू ذر रज़ियल्लाहु ताला अन्हु से नकल किया है. This statement is also a hadith that was narrated, that is found in the book of Abu Dawood, narrated from Abu Umama and Hadrat Abu Dhar radiallahu ta'ala anhuma. और तिरमिजी ने हजरत मुआद बिन अनस रदियल्लाहु ta'ala anhu की सनद से इसको नकल किया है. Likewise, in the book of Tirmizi, Hadrat Muaz bin Anas also presented the same hadith. Hadrat Amr radiallahu ta'ala anhu bin Jamuh ne je hadith yun bayan ki hai. So Hadrat Amr bin Jamuh presented this hadith in the following way. لا يحق العبد حق صريح الإيمان حتى يحب لله تعالى ويبغض لله. That is, the reality of faith will not dawn upon a man until he loves for the sake of Allah and he has rancor only for the sake of Allah. Or Hadrat Bara bin Azib radiallahu ta'ala anhu ni yun bayan ki hai. From the narration of Hadrat Bara bin Azib, it's as such. أوثق عرى الإيمان الحب في الله والبغض في الله. So the strongest aspect of faith is when one loves only for the sake of Allah the Almighty, or has rancor, dissociate himself from something only for the sake of Allah the Almighty. Imam Bukhari ne iman ko is had tak mahdud nahi raka, जिस पर बाकी आइमा का इत्तिफाक है. For Imam Bukhari, he did not stop on the perspective of faith which other Aimma had stopped. On the contrary, that yani dil ki marifat ke sat yakin kalna zuban se ikrar kalna or amali soliha bajalana. So other Aimma has stopped on the perspective that the heart should be filled with faith, that is the marifa, the recognition of the heart. Then the tongue should be a testimony to it. Likewise, human action should also go in accordance with the faith. That is where other Imam had stopped. But for Imam Bukhari, balki Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi ne mahabbat or nafrat जैसे कल्बी इंफियालात और अवातिफ को भी ईमान में शामिल किया है और हक यही है. For Imam Bukhari, he included the state of the heart as well. That is, the aspect of love, the aspect of like and dislike, all these things that are related to the actions performed by the heart. Therefore, it is not only the action of the body, but also the action of the heart is needed, is also inclusive when we are talking about the aspect of true faith. And this is the reality, this is true. क्योंकि ईमान जब तक दायरा इल्म मारिफत से एहसासात और इंफियालात में तब्दीली नहीं होता, तब तक वो एक बेजान शे है जिसमें न कुव्वत है और न वो इंसान में कोई अमल हरकत पैदा कर सकता है, और न हकीकत में वो उसके लिए अमन और अमन और तमनीयत का मौजब बन सकता है. The reality of this is that till one can perceive these changes in his heart, we will not say that the faith is complete. On the contrary, the faith will only be like a lifeless thing that has no power in it, nor can the action of human being go in accordance with it, because it does not make any change in the actions of the heart itself. Likewise, one will not have solace through that type of faith that does not make a change within the heart. Now, if you relate this particular perspective to the very first hadith presented by Imam Bukhari, and we add its commentary, innamal a'malu biniyat, actions are judged according to intention, or actions as its foundation on intention, then you realize the relationship between that hadith and this particular section of the hadith of Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi. That is, the action that is expected to be taken by your body that will be rewardable in the sight of Allah needs to be an action that was taken consciously. Now, for that action to be taken consciously, then the change in your state of heart will be required. For example, a decision to go to mosque on time will be a decision from the heart. A decision to leave a particular action that is not okay will have to come from your heart. Therefore, when your heart takes its own step by having a desire for something, it likes something, or it dislikes something, that is when your body can also act in accordance to the state of heart that you have. Therefore, it is very much necessary that there is a correlation. I mean, we include the state of the heart, the action of the heart, in the perspective of a perfect faith. Now we go to Hadrat Umar bin Abdulaziz, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Umar bin Abdulaziz, we mentioned him before. He was regarded as the Mujadid of the of the first century, and even some people used to consider him. I mean, you always try to consider him as a fifth Khalifa in Islam. Umar bin Abdulaziz bin Marwan, rahmatullah alayhi, Banu Umayyah Misete. That is, Hadrat Umar bin Abdulaziz bin Marwan, rahmatullah alayhi, was of Banu Umayyah, was from the Umayyad dynasty. Or Nanawe me Khalifa Hui. He became a Khalifa in the year 99 Hijri. Takwa Zod or Ilm me ala Paeke in Sante. He was a man of high rank when it comes to piety, Zuhd, that is devotion in worship, knowledge, that is ilm. All Khulafa Rashidin Ki Sirat Party, just like I mentioned, that he was on the lane of, he was following the footstep, he perfectly following the footstep of the Khulafa Rashidin. उन्हीं की तबलीग से सेंट के रोजाओं और अमीरों ने इस्लाम कबूल किया और उन्हें पहली सदी का मुजद्दिद माना गया है. It was through the tablighi effort, the preaching efforts of Umar bin Abdulaziz, that Islam reached the reached Sindh, that is a state or a region in India and within the Indian subcontinent. So through him, the Raja, the kings and the Amirs, the kings and the Umara of India accepted Islam, and is also considered as the Mujadid of the first century. I mentioned this earlier. Adi ibn Umaira Kindi Tabihe. So the one through which the statement was brought in, that is Adi bin Adi. So he was a Tabi, or Umar bin Abdulaziz ki taraf se Iraq mi Amil Yani governor the. So during the era of Umar bin Abdulaziz, he was the governor of Iraq. Or Sahaba ki Aulad mi City, he was also among the children of the companions of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Inna lil imani fara'id wa shara'i'. That is a statement from Hadrat Umar bin Abdulaziz, which he wrote to one of the governors, Adi bin Adi Kindi. That is, faith has its own regulations and system. Faraid say it has its faraid and the sharai. Faraid say murad tamam arkani iman hai. What you regard as faraid are all the arkan iman, that is the articles of faith. Jesse Allah, Allah Rasul or Malaika or Kutub Samawiya or Akhirat par Iman, such as believe in Allah, believe in Prophet, believe in the angels, believe in holy books, and believe in the hereafter. Next, Tamam Usul Islam, Jesse Namaz, Roza, Hajj, Zakah, Wagera. It also includes the basics of Islam, the pillars of Islam, such as Salat, fasting, Hajj, Zakat, and the likes. Jinka Kalna Zururi he. Those things that are very much important, that are compulsory, those things are regarded as faraid. That is what is compulsory on a Muslim. Things that are compulsory on Muslims. Sharai say Murad Mukhtalif Qawanin معاملات از قسم بیع و شرا نکاح و طلاق वगैरह और हुदूद से मुराद इस्लामी ताज़ीरात और सज़ाइन और सुनन से मुराद वो काम. Okay, so what we regard as the sharia, are different rules, different canon in Islam, such as things that are related to action, like trade and commerce, nikah, wedding, or talak, that is divorce, and the likes. Likewise, the hudud, the point of punishment in Islam. Likewise, the tanzirat, that is another form of punishment, but it's not as severe as the had. और sunan se murad vo kam jo an ne the sunnah actions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi ne ayatu ahadithu aqwali sahaba se istidlal karne ke बाद एक बहुत बड़ी मुजतहिद मुजद्दिद जुबान का कॉल नकल सॉरी मुजद्दिद जुबान का कॉल नकल करके ईमान के वसी मजमूम को बयान किया है. That is, after Imam Bukhari had presented verses of the Holy Quran and Hadith and statements of Sahaba, he also presented the idea, the statement of one mujtahid, a mujadid in Islam who has a lot of, who made a lot of efforts for, who strove a lot for the sake of Islam, and is someone of high repute. So through his statement, he was able to uh, make the idea of faith, give a broader look to the idea of faith. इस मफहूम के मुताबिक दिल का ईमान ये है कि इरफान और यकीन के साथ तस्दीक करना. Therefore, when we consider this particular understanding, then we know that the faith from the heart is something that comes with irfan and yakin, that is recognition and having certainty, that is bearing witness to it through through the recognition of the heart and also certainty that lies in the heart. Zuban ka iman ye hai ke uska ikrar karna. The faith of the tongue, we've mentioned that of the heart. That of the tongue is to bear testimony to the faith that lies in the heart. That is why it is quite very much necessary that one makes the pronouncements of La ilaha illallah in order to be recognized as a Muslim. Likewise, each and every action that is expected of a man, those aspects that requires the tongue, the meaning utterances from the tongue, are equally necessary. So they are also considered as the indication of faith from the tongue. Baki azaka iman yeheke amlan farmandari karin. The faith of other parts of the body is to present that obedience through their action. For example, we see the way we observe salat with each and every aspect of our body, the way we raise our hand, we bow our head, we go into prostration. Likewise, it also involves whenever we are called for any particular regulation in Islam, we also perform the action like observing fasting, fast, or performing any action like jihad. We take part in tabligh, taking part in jihad, taking part in anything that involves the action. So all those are related to a display of faith through the other parts of the body. Unimano say Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi, Imam Shafi, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullah alayhim, wagara iman ki mafhum ko wasin samajte hain. Therefore, on the basis of all these things which I have listed, that is talking of the faith from the heart, the faith from the tongue, and the faith from other parts of the body, those are the perspective that Imam Malik, Imam Shafi, and Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, rahmatullahi alayhim ajmain, had uh, extended at giving a broader outlook to faith. But khilaf unke, on the contrary to theirs, Imam Abu Hanifa और दीगर फुकहा मारिफत कल्ब और जुबान के इकरार का नाम ईमान रखते हैं. On the contrary to those Imam that I've mentioned, that I mentioned here, for Imam Abu Hanifa and some other fuqaha, that is the scholars of jurisprudence, they had pointed out Iman, to faith, to something of the heart and the tongue, meaning they did not give a broader outlook to it when it comes to the perspective of the action that comes underneath. Now, another verse of the Holy Quran was presented, and that is "Walakin liyatuma inna qalbi." That is, Hadrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam was saying that I had requested for this, O Allah, so that my heart can find solace. ये उस आयत की तरफ इशारा है, that is this statement is pointing to the verse وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّ أَرِنِي كَيْفَ تُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى قَالَ أَوَلَمْ تُؤْمِنْ قَالَ بَلَى وَلَكِنْ لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي. That is, and remember when Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam said, "Oh my Lord, do show me how you are going to bring the dead back to life." Then Allah the Almighty inquired, "Is it that you do not believe?" Hadrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam responded that, "Oh my Lord, I do believe, just that I want to find solace in my heart." So, as is understood, that this particular verse of the Holy Quran showed the fear of Hadrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam on the future generation who are going to be his descendants, if how they are not going to die in misguidance because of all the evils that is widespread. So Hadrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam want to have a sort of certainty from Allah the Almighty that truly his nation will not die off. So Allah the Almighty inquired from him, "Is it that you do not believe?" He said, "Oh my Lord, I do believe, but I want to find solace in my heart." That is something that is quite very natural. Hadrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam already knew the series of things. I mean, he was aware of the state of the world and what could continue of atheism and disbelief. I mean, polytheism. Therefore, he couldn't find solace in his heart at that moment in time, having a fear that, I mean, despite having the belief that Allah the Almighty had made this promise, but at this particular juncture, when one has a worry for his nation, he still continues to get disturbed that there shouldn't be any other condition that will go against uh, this particular promise from Allah the Almighty, because Allah the Almighty is Al Ghanish. So I will continue with the. Oh, sorry, I didn't translate what I meant by Al Ghanish. That is, Allah the Almighty is self reliant. He doesn't need any one of us. On the contrary, we are the one who needs Allah the Almighty. So I will now continue with the statement of Hadrat Maulana Zain-ul Abideen. Hadrat Ibrahim radiallahu ta'ala anhu ne dua ki ke, "Eh mere Rob, mujhe दिखला ke tu मुझे किस तरह जिंदा करता है." So Hadrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam prayed to Allah that, "Oh my Lord, do show me how you bring the dead to life." Falmaya, kya tu iman nahi rakta? Allah the Almighty said, "Is it that you do not believe?" Jawab diya ke, "Haan, kyun nahi?" He responded, "Why not, oh my Lord? ईमान तो है मगर इसलिए कि मेरा दिल मुतमईन हो जाए." I do believe, if it is the aspect of faith, I do have it, just that I want my heart to also find solace. इस आयत से इमाम बुखारी रहमतुल्लाह अलैहि ने ये इस्तिंबात किया है कि एक ईमान बिल गैब होता है जो इल्म यकीन का दर्जा रखता है. That is, Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi is indicating that there is a perspective of faith which is on the level of ilmul yaqin, that is certainty by knowledge. यानी सिर्फ अक्ली दलाइल और बराहीन से काम लेकर इल्म हासिल किया जाता है. And that is when one acquired knowledge through perception or through his senses, that okay, because of this, because of that, this would have been the right idea. And Hadrat Zain-ul Abideen Waliyyullah Shah radiallahu ta'ala who then presented a popular example that the Promise alayhi salatu wasalam always give. He said, "जैसे दुए को देखकर आग के वजूद के मुतालिक इस्तिदलालन यकीन किया जाए और एक that is, just like whenever anyone sees smoke, by sighting smoke from afar, our sense tells us that there is fire somewhere through which the smoke comes out. Now, this is ilmul yaqeen, knowledge by influence. We've not seen the fire, but all because we are able to see smoke, we have the understanding, the knowledge that because of the smoke, then there will be a fire. So that is ilmul yaqeen. If the person is being asked, "Did you see fire?" he will obviously respond that no. Therefore, that certainty that there is truly fire there is the person does not possess it. He has only possessed it with an influence that seeing the smoke, then there should be fire, that the smoke is coming out from it. Now, we have the other aspect which he mentioned, and that is Ainul Yaqeen. जिसकी बिना मुशाहिदा पर होती है. Ainul Yaqeen, that is certainty by sight. Something that is very common for people saying that seeing is believing. So it is actually known as one of the aspects of faith, such that the example, okay, he had mentioned the example, jise ag dekkar ag ke wujud ka ilmuhu, such as when one sees the fire, then he has a knowledge that yes, truly there is fire. Initially, in the very first perspective, it is smoke that he was seeing, that he had an idea that because of this smoke, there must be a fire that the smoke is coming out from. Now, when he sees the fire, his knowledge of that idea has increased, that truly there is a fire which he is seeing before him. Dono halatun mi insan mumin hi hota hai. In these two situations, the man still remains a believer, meaning on the level of ilmul yaqeen and ainul yaqeen. That is, he has a knowledge by inference, or he has a knowledge by what he is saying. The knowledge is still there, so the person is still considered a believer. Therefore, when you have belief in God Almighty, only by inference, something of the idea of cause and effect. Because of the effects, you believe there must be a cause, but you do not have the idea of how the cause is. Then the other aspect is, okay, now you've seen something that indicates itself, for which you can, okay, if this exists, then because of it, the other thing I was having influence at the previously would be correct. So, considering these two as perspective, the person still remains a believer. Now, Hadrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam just say, Arif billah ne mushahida ki zururat mehsus ki. Now, such man of the standard of Hadrat Ibrahim, who had a great divine recognition, had an idea that he perceived that he needs to have a kind of, he needs to stand to be a witness to the idea he is believing in. इसलिए नहीं कि उनको ईमान नहीं था. It wasn't because he did not believe earlier on, बल्कि इसलिए कि उन्हें इत्मीनान क़ल्ब हासिल हो जाए. But on the contrary, he actually wants to have the solace. So, for example, the one who can spot smoke from afar and has an idea that there should be fire, if he pursues that smoke, if he traces that smoke in order to see the fire, it wasn't that previously he doesn't believe that there was a fire. On the contrary, he just wants to satisfy his conscience that I believe there is fire there. So let me get there and confirm there is truly there is fire over there. मगर इस यकीन के साथ एक नई हालत इत्मीनान क़ल्ब हासिल होती है. That is, from that particular perspective, after seeing it, then after having that certainty that he has seen the fire, then another level of solace is found in his heart. Iman इस हालत तरक़ी में दायरा माकुल से निकलकर एहसास क़ल्बी में दाखिल हो जाता है. Therefore, at that particular level, the faith moves from the idea of just inference to the idea of perception, or I mean to the idea of sighting. So considering that the belief, the faith of that individual has increased, there is another perspective that Hadrat Maulana Zain-ul Abideen did not mention here. Probably he didn't consider it necessary on this this particular instance, because it may not directly go through in relation to what he's presenting. But Hadrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam had presented it as the third aspect of knowledge and perfection of faith, and that is what is known as Hakul Yaqeen. Now, he gave the example of Hakul Yaqeen, just like he had mentioned the smoke, seeing the fire. Now, when it gets to the stage of Hakul Yaqeen, it is not a matter of just seeing the fire, but it's a matter of entering the fire or putting your hand in the fire. Now, one who puts his hand in fire, there is no way after the hand gets burnt that someone is going to tell him in future that it wasn't a fire, it was just a staged scene, or it was just a perception of yours that no, there was no fire there, it was something else. On the contrary, the person will stand by the certainty that, how do you mean? I myself have perceived the fire, I put my hand in it and it burns my hand. So the one who puts his hand in fire and the hand got burnt, there is no way you are going to convince that individual that it is no more fire, that it wasn't fire. You can convince someone after seeing smoke that no, there was no fire there, something else created the smoke. You may convince the person after seeing the fire that no, it was just an artificial scene, or just a perception or your imagination. That was why, because you wanted to see fire, that was why you are seeing it. But the person who was able to put his hand inside the fire and the hand got burnt, there is no way you are going to convince that individual that something else, that it was something else and not fire. Whatever that thing would be must be fire, because he had seen it, he had put his hand inside it, and he becomes a living witness to it. But because Hadrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam wouldn't live till the future time when the prophecy will be fulfilled, so it wouldn't be the idea of he having a sort of hakul yakin on that perspective wouldn't be needed. I think that is why Hadrat Maulana Zain-ul Abideen, Waliyyullah Shah Sahib radiallahu ta'ala anhu, did not include it in this particular exegesis. So it continued. قال معاذ بن جبل رضي الله تعالى عنه اجلس بنا نؤمن ساعة. This is another hadith, another statement Imam Bukhari presented in order to support the perspective he was establishing, that a reputable companion of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Muaz bin Jabal, had once said that, sit with us, let's believe for an hour. Now, what's the idea? Hadrat Muaz bin Jabal radiyallahu ta'ala anhu ek jalil qadar sahabiti. Yes, Hadrat Muaz bin Jabal was a companion of high repute. Or Hadrat Sallallahu ke sat jangu mein sharik rahi. He also participated in wars with the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi और Muslim rahmatullahi alayhi ने उनसे 157 के करीब अहादीस नकल की हैं. So Imam Bukhari and Muslim rahmatullahi alayhima got around 157 ahadith from them based on the counting of Umdatul Qari. उन्होंने एक शख्स से कहा, so he was the one who said to an individual, Ijlis bina nu'minu sa'atan, sit with us, let's believe for an hour. इसके ये माने नहीं कि वो मोमिन नहीं थे. It wasn't because they were not believers. That was why they were having that statement. बल्कि ये मुराद है कि ईमान की बातें करके ईमान ताज़ा कर ले. What they had in mind is, let's discuss faith so that we can refresh our faith. Meaning, when you sit together to discuss things of faith, you are able to refresh your faith within that period of time. So that is the idea that was presented in the statement. Ijlis bina nu'min sa'atan. Sit with us, let's believe for an hour. Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi इस मशहूर रिवायत को पेश करके ये बतलाना चाहते हैं कि कभी ईमान में वो बशाशत और ताजगी नहीं रहती जो होनी चाहिए. So Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi is presented this popular narration just to indicate that sometimes the joy of faith, the mind does not have that joy of faith refreshing in each and every point in time. Or iman ki batin karne se wo bashashat और तज़की az sar no पैदा हो जाती है. That is, but when you stand together or you sit together and you discuss some perspective of faith, you are able to refresh your faith at that point in time. Goya iman ke gitne barne ki ye bhi ek surat hai. So this now appears to be a type of the way that faith decreases or increases. Meaning, when you discuss when you sit together, kunuma sodikin, you sit together in a company in order to discuss things on the perspective of faith, your faith is refreshing. But when you put an end to it, till another time when you do something that increases your faith, you do not feel the same joy as you will be feeling, the same joy of faith, the same solace, the same perspective, the same feeling doesn't come together within that period in time. The period that you are no more discussing that aspect of faith, you are not studying things that are related to faith. So it is now considered as a perspective or as a way that the faith is reduced. When you get an opportunity to discuss it, it is like you are now renewing your faith while it is increasing. Al yaqeen, al imanu kullu. Certainty is the all round perspective in faith. Yakin hi sare ka sahara यकीन ही सरे का सारा ईमान है, क्योंकि यकीन ही है जो दरअसल इंसान को गुनाहों से बचाता है. That is, so certainty is an all-round aspect of faith, because it is through it that man moves away from sins. और यकीन ही से इंसान नेकी करने पर कादिर होता है. And it is through this certainty that man has the ability to do good. कोई सच्ची तब्दीली बगैर यकीन के नहीं हो सकती. Man would not have any true reformation until he has a firm faith. अल्लाह ताला से सच्ची मोहब्बत उसके अहकाम की पूरी पूरी इत्तोआत यकीन से होती है. Out of having true love for Allah the Almighty and going in line, fulfilling all the aspects of His commandments, then one can say that such an individual has certainty in faith. Because if he doesn't have certainty in faith, the true love, he will not be able to possess it, and he will not possess the true perspective of obedience, because he wouldn't know what is even having obedience for. Now, he presented Hadrat Zain-ul Abideen rahmatullahi alayhi who presented a particular example that the Prophet ﷺ had always given. जिसको ये यकीन होता है कि फुलान सुरख में जहरीला सांप छुपा बैठा है, वो कभी उस सुरख में उंगली नहीं डालता. Whosoever has the certainty that there is a poisonous snake in a hole, such an individual will never dip his hand inside that hole, will never dip his finger inside that hole. Why? All because he has the certainty that yes, there is a poisonous snake in it. If he doesn't have that certainty, he may choose to do it or he may not. I mean, out of influence, maybe there is, maybe there is not. He may be courageous, this and that. But no matter how courageous the person is, knowing that there is a poisonous snake in a hole, the person will not dip his bare finger inside it. So इसी तरह जिसको अल्लाह ताला पर कामिल यकीन होता है और वो यकीन से जानता है कि उसकी नफरमानी एक हलाक कर देने वाला जहर है. So whosoever has the full certainty, a full belief, a full aspect of belief in Allah the Almighty, has full certainty, knowing fully well that disobeying Allah the Almighty is destruction, और उसके अहकाम की इत्तोआत और उसके अहकाम की इत्तोआत सलामती और अमन बख्शने वाला तरियाक है. And being obedient to the rule of Allah the Almighty grants one protection and peace of mind. Likewise, it serves as antidote against all the poisonous aspects of sin. Wo guna se yaqinan bachega, such an individual will definitely keep away from sin. Or uske ahkam bejalayega, and he will obey the rule of Allah the Almighty. So just as the Prophet ﷺ used to say that it is lack of certainty that makes man disobey, that makes man commit sins. When man has certainty, he will never commit sins and he will always obey Allah the Almighty. I think I've exhausted the time for today. If there is no question or anything to add in the next 30 seconds, then I'll bring the class to an end. Jazakumullah khairan.
بارك الله فيه.
All right, we shall meet again the same time next on Thursday, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام. جزاكم الله خيرا.